Well, fáilte romh go léir, ag an dara cruinniú den Thionól Saoránach, maidir leis an uchtú lasad den banreacht. Tásúil agam go raibh nullag fuhuimhneas agah go léir, gur líg sibh mar cí agus guam athléinn fé waise díobh go léir. Welcome everyone to our second meeting of the Citizens' Assembly on the 8th Amendment of the Constitution. I hope everybody had a peaceful and restful Christmas, and I wish you all a happy new year. All of the best for 2017. I'm delighted to see so many familiar faces. I've said that already this morning, but it's true. Welcome to those joining us today online also, fáilte. And all of the weekend's presentations by the expert speakers and the questions and answer sessions will be streamlined live online. They will also be available on view after the event. We will today recommence our consideration of the 8th Amendment following our first meeting last November. The Oireachtas has asked us to consider this topic first, that is to say the 8th Amendment. And as mentioned previously, our objective is to report on this topic by mid-2017, and that is still our objective. At the previous meeting, we considered the existing legal situation regarding the 8th Amendment and discovered how uncertain this area is. We heard from medical professionals about how the Protection of Life During Pregnancy Act 2013 operates in practice and the necessary conditions which must be met in order for a woman to receive a termination in Ireland. The Crisis Pregnancy Programme provided some valuable statistics around the choices being made by women in this country in crisis pregnancy situations, including details about the numbers of women continuing their pregnancy, either leading to parenting or adoption, and the numbers who go on to seek terminations in the United Kingdom or elsewhere. Finally, we were given an introduction to ethics. That was intended to provide us with a backdrop to our learning, to understand how in certain situations reasonable people can reach different conclusions when presented with a difficult moral issue. Today we will build on what we have already learned, so I'm turning to what we're going to hear this weekend. At our November meeting, we concluded proceedings with a brainstorming session by the members on the topics and issues they wanted to hear more about over the remaining weekends of the Assembly, and we've had regard to the outcome of that. And perhaps the most prominent suggestion from the feedback session was a desire to learn about fetal abnormalities and life-limiting conditions. This is where we resume our considerations this morning. In selecting the speakers for the medical session this morning, we wanted to give you a comprehensive picture of the care paths taken by women who receive a diagnosis of fetal abnormality. We will hear first from Dr. Peter McParland, a specialist in fetal medicine from the National Maternity Hospital, Holles Street in Dublin. He will begin proceedings with a presentation on his experience on what fetal abnormalities or life-limiting conditions are being diagnosed. He will describe for us, from his experience, how such a diagnosis is made and the prevalence of these conditions, and also what is happening for women and their babies in these situations in the case of women who continue with their pregnancies, and details of the types of specialist care that they may be offered. He will also describe the situation for mothers, parents, who decide not to continue with the pregnancy, which decision involves travelling abroad. Dr. McParland will be joined this morning on this morning's panel by Dr. Adrian Foran. Dr. Foran is a neonatal specialist who works in both the Rotunda Hospital and Temple Street Hospital in Dublin, and as such is one of the specialists referred to by Dr. McParland, who provides care to women who choose to continue their pregnancies in these situations. She will again provide us with details of the care paths for women and their babies who receive a diagnosis of fetal abnormality and decide to continue their pregnancies. She will also give details about what is known in terms of prognosis of these conditions. Moving on to legal issues, the third member of our panel this morning is Eileen Barrington, who is a senior counsel. She will give us an overview of Irish law in relation to fetal in relation to fetal abnormalities. Ms Barrington is joined by Dr Noel Higgins from National University of Ireland, Maynooth, to provide us with an overview of the national, European and international law, and she will also discuss the application of fetal abnormalities in the international legal context. This afternoon, we will focus our attention on the ethical arguments around the termination of a pregnancy. Specifically, we have two speakers joining us to discuss the moral status of the unborn or the fetus. This will supplement all of the factual, legal and medical information we receive around the termination of pregnancy. It will outline our more innate and intuitive approaches to this issue on both sides of the debate. It will hopefully broaden all our minds to different perspectives and arguments that we may not have previously considered ourselves. For this panel, we welcome Helen Watt from Anscombe Bioethics Centre, Oxford, and Bobby Farsides from the University of Sussex. And I'm very grateful to both of them for coming here at this time of the year when one worries about fog at Heathrow and matters like that delay travel, but we're very grateful to them for coming. Now, I just want to mention something that may, to ensure it doesn't cause confusion. You may have noticed from the agenda that the agenda for this week, as originally circulated, included two sessions on ethics. The first on the moral status of the unborn or the fetus, and the second on reproductive autonomy, with two speakers dealing with both sides of the debate, Dr Thionól O'Mahuna and Dr Joan McCarthy. Due to the serious illness of a family member of one of the speakers, the session on reproductive autonomy has been postponed until the February meeting of the Assembly. So we'll hopefully hear from them at the next meeting. Now, I just want to say something at this juncture about the terminology which will be used today and has been used on previous occasions as well. And I'm talking about its use in the Assembly documentation, in the agenda, speaking notes and such like, and by the speakers. The correct use of terminology in this debate is an issue which has been causing both myself and the Secretariat some difficulty in settling our minds to it. It is a contentious aspect of the arguments around the topic we are discussing. You will note that in describing the programme for today, the agenda refers to fetal abnormalities and fetal abnormalities, and in contrast, I have earlier referred to life-limiting conditions. I'm aware that different sides of the debate on this issue contend that the use of one or other of the forms of terminology can in itself ascribe a value judgment or a bias around the topic and how it's discussed. I say this to illuminate the argument rather than to suggest that I agree with any position or how terminology might be used to support it. It is argued, for example, that the term fetal abnormalities desensitizes what is a very difficult and traumatic diagnosis for a woman and her baby. This is something that we see borne through in that many medical practitioners tell us that this is a term they do not use when speaking to a woman about a diagnosis. Nonetheless, the term fetal abnormality is widely used and is very much in common parlance. The term, or a variation of it, has been and is used in international law to describe exactly the topic we're going to hear about today. To exclude its usage at the Assembly would therefore, in my view, be inappropriate. It will therefore be used and will continue to be used by the Assembly throughout the remaining weekends as appropriate in the interests of clarity. Similarly, in our ethics session this afternoon, the agenda refers to the moral status of the unborn fetus. In academic commentaries, the expression moral status of the fetus is widely used. However, I felt that it was important that the description of this afternoon's topic be expanded to refer to the unborn, both for the sake of clarity again, and also because Article 40, Section 3, subsection 3 of the Constitution refers to the unborn. In considering all of this, I would ask the Assembly to be conscious of language in this debate and how it is used. I will come back to this subject again at a later stage if necessary, and continue to provide context and clarification about the decisions made by the Assembly in this regard. Now, what's happening for the remainder of this week after today? I'll now turn my attention to tomorrow, and all our attention will be drawn once again tomorrow to the law. Dr. David Kenny from Trinity College Dublin will provide us with a presentation on how laws are made and changed. I wanted to include this session on the Irish legal system and how it operates this weekend as a prerequisite to the Assembly considering the making of recommendations to the Oireachtas. The separation of powers between the executive, the legislature and the courts is enshrined in our Constitution. It is the foundation of our system of government. A clear understanding of the way in which the organs of state interact, their powers and their boundaries will be essential to us being able to provide the Houses of the Oireachtas with meaningful and workable recommendations. Dr. Kenny's presentation will be followed by what we're calling a group work exercise designed to further your understanding of how the law works. Here, in groups, you will consider unrelated policy examples. What I mean by that is unrelated to the Eighth Amendment, and you will think about how they should be controlled and regulated through the law. At the end of the exercise, you will have an opportunity to reflect on what you've heard about the theory and how the laws are made and changed, and how to apply this to the topic before us, in other words, the Eighth Amendment. I think it is going to be a very interesting exercise and one you will all find challenging and engaging. Finally, before wrapping up our considerations for this weekend, we will begin to focus our minds on the issues in respect of which recommendations to be made to the Oireachtas by the Assembly will have to be considered. I appreciate that we have not yet covered all aspects of the topic, that is to say the Eighth Amendment, that you have requested to hear about, but equally the feedback from the roundtable brainstorming on the last day indicated that many of you are eager to develop some understanding at this stage as to what shape the Assembly's outputs will take. I think that starting to identify at this stage what sort of recommendations we can make will assist your analysis of the knowledge and information we are yet to receive. I just want to say something briefly about submissions. As you know, the submissions process closed last month, in fact closed on the 16th of December. The Assembly received over 13,000 online and postal submissions on the topic of the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution. The Secretariat has been reading each and every one prior to publication. And when I say publication, I mean publication on the Assembly's website. Currently, there are being published, currently the submissions are being published on a rolling basis in chronological order as received on the website and are available to view. But as you can well imagine, given the volume of submissions we've received, it's an ongoing process. And now, just in conclusion, the level of engagement with the submissions process is further evidence of the importance of the topic before us and a testament to the complexity and breadth of opinion on the topic. Having said that, we must now get down to brass tacks and to the work, and I now invite Dr. McParland to make the first presentation today. Thank you very much.
Forward and back.